Hey guys, welcome to another Photoshop tutorial. This is Andre from psdbox.com, and I have a new tutorial where I want to show you how to make some dramatic hard light effects in Photoshop. And this is a special tutorial somehow because I don't know exactly what I will do. I already know the effect. I created the effect on another image, but I don't know the end result of this one. You've already seen the result of this tutorial at the beginning of the video, but I don't know what I will do. So when I'm done with this, I'll use that end result as the screenshot that you just seen at the beginning of the video. I usually start with a background image, and I chose this one, but I want to have a portrait format, not this landscape format. So what I will do is use the crop tool to select part of this road like that, and I'll extend this up a bit and maybe make it wider, and right click and choose crop. And the reason why I have this empty part here is because I will mask this. So the first thing I'll do is name this background, and I created this layer mask, and now I will use the gradient tool, use black to white, and I'll zoom in a bit, and I'll create this. I'll press the shift key and click here and drag up like that, and make sure you use the linear one, not the reflected gradient, and reverse it. Okay, now I have the sky is gone, and I will open a new sky image. I have a folder with sky stock images, and I will open this stock image, which I already used on another tutorial, but I like how it looks. So select all, copy, and paste it here. And by the way, if you have Photoshop Elements, you will be able to follow this tutorial in Photoshop Elements as well. And if you have any problems or have any questions, just ask me. But I think all the methods that I will use can be followed in Adobe Elements. So I have the sky there, and well, this, as you can see, they don't really match. The first thing I want to do is refine the layer mask a bit, make it smoother. Something like that. And what I will have to do is adjust. In this case, I will adjust the sky to match this road, because I want to have this kind of a orange look. So I'll use maybe a photo filter, or if not, maybe a gradient map. Let's see, photo filter, and let's choose sepia, for example. Well, let's use warming and increase the density, but let's see which one works best. I like this one, and let's try blend modes. Well, let's leave this on normal and maybe try a gradient map. And on the shadows, we'll use this dark blue, and for the highlights, we'll use an orange, like maybe this one. And let's try the soft light blend mode. Soft light doesn't really work. I think I'll stick with the photo filter only. So just use the photo filter, and I use the warming filter 81, and I set the density to 36. Let's see if preserve luminosity, well, uncheck preserve luminosity, it works best. So the next thing I want to do is add a gradient map to affect the entire image. Well, actually, let's desaturate this a bit. So use hue saturation and reduce saturation to minus 35. That looks nice. And now add a photo filter, but in this case it will affect the entire image. So photo filter, where are you? Right here. And let's leave this one and change to linear light. and decrease the opacity way down like that. But I don't like this color. Let's see some of the presets here. Well, I don't like let me use my own color. And I kind of like this one. And if you want more effect, just increase the density. Like so. I want more contrast here, so I'll add a gradient map and use the same colors, blue and yellow. Something like that, more orangey. So click OK, and let's set this to multiply and reduce the opacity. Let's try putting the photo filter on top of it, and maybe increase the I'll use some brighter colors for the gradient map, because we're using the multiply blend mode, and that makes the whole image darker. So if the image is too dark, use brighter colors or lower the opacity. So to 15 is okay. And now just add some levels, because I want more contrast on the midtones. .9 and increase the highlights. Not too much though. Okay, so now I have a bit more lights, more highlights here. Too much actually. Let's see this to 0.95 and increase the shadows a bit. Okay, so that's our background. So we went from this to this. So now let's go ahead and add the model. This is a model that I used on another tutorial, and I will also show you that that masking technique that I talked about. So I have on a separate layer the model extracted from the background, and I will also use the original one because I want to use these original shadows. I will move these two layers on the other canvas. So I'll select both layers, press shift, use the move tool, and let go here. And the reason why I moved them at the same time is because I want to have the extracted version of the model exactly on top of the original. So because I need that in order to keep the shadows in place. And the first thing I'll do is make them smaller, like that. I want to make sure that the shadows here reach the edge here on the canvas. And I'll deactivate the extracted model. Let me rename this, and this will be our shadow map. And I'll deactivate this layer, and what I will do is turn this into black and white. So use hue saturation, reduce saturation to 0, and I'll press Ctrl I to invert the image, because I'm repeating the same process as I did when I made the contrast masking tutorial, because I want to have these shadows white and the background black. So now I'll use levels to increase the shadows like that, and also the midtones. And now you can see that I have these shadows white and the background it's almost black. And let's see, maybe I can use curves, or you can still use levels again. Make those shadows a bit brighter, and click OK. And now I'll press Ctrl I to invert the image again. So as you can see, the whole background is almost white and the shadows are dark. And now what I will do is change the blend mode of this to multiply, and now you can see that I have the shadows here. And I'll reactivate this layer and boom, I have the shadows here. You can see the original shadows are now on this on the canvas, and you don't see the rest of the image, only the shadows. And if you want to adjust that, use levels again, and just play with the midtones or the shadows slider, and you can adjust how the shadows look. So what I will do next is link this layer so that if I move one of them, both move at the same time. But one problem that I see here is you can see this hard edge there. Let me deactivate that so you can see it. So I'll create a layer mask and use a soft brush to get rid of that shadow there. I'll increase the brush opacity. Okay, and once I have the model here, what I want to do is work a bit on the adjustments layers that I already have to adjust the tone of the road here, because I don't really like how it looks. And this is the problem here, the photo filter 2. It's too dark. So I like the color, but I don't like the contrast. So let's lower the opacity to about 15. And now it looks a lot better. And maybe desaturate even more. Let's see, to minus 50. Okay, that looks a lot better. The next thing that I want to do is reduce the opacity on the model as well. So I'll use a hue saturation as clipping mask and reduce the opacity to minus 35, something like that. And another problem that I see here on top from this shadow layer, so I'll mask that using the brush tool. So that's why I used that layer mask there, because I knew I would have some problems with that shadow on some of the areas. So if I deactivate this layer, you can see all the areas that I don't need, so I can mask those. The only part that I'm interested in is the shadows here, so only keep the parts that you need. So now that I have the model there, I can start making that hard light effect that I want, and I will use the most important tool here is the dodge and burn. So I'll create my dodge and burn layer. I have a tutorial on how I created that action. What you do is create a new layer, fill it with 50% gray, and change the blend mode to overlay. If you want to see that tutorial, just go to my website or to my channel and search dodge and burn, and you'll find the tutorial. And for the dodge and burn process, I will switch to my tablet because it's quicker, it's easier for me to do, and it's also easier for you to listen because you will not hear all those mouse clicks. But you can use the mouse. It's the same. You can achieve the same effect with the mouse, so don't worry about that. So I will start with the dodge tool, and an exposure of about 10% is okay. Make sure you have the range set to midtones, and start dodging the highlights. So just go over the highlights here on the muscles, on the legs, part here of the shoe, and let me zoom in. So this is a process that takes a bit of time. Actually, this is the most important part of this tutorial, because this will give you that hard light effect that you've seen, and also some of the filters that we will add later. But for now, just use dodge and burn. So I'm just using the dodge tool here on the man's muscles and on the body. Let's add some of the highlights here on the head as well. And especially on the folds here on the pants. It's better to use low exposures and just go several times like I'm doing now, than using a high exposure value and then just making a mistake and having to go back. If you make a really big mistake that you cannot fix, what you do in order to erase this is just use the brush tool and set the color to 50% gray and just paint over it, and you can see that the effect is gone. So let me dodge more here on the legs. I'll spend a few minutes here just dodging and burning, because as I said, this is the most important part of the process, and you'll get some quite interesting results. And if you think this is a difficult process, it's just a matter of training your eyes to see the highlights and the shadows, and with a bit of practice you'll get it. So right now I'm using the dodge tool to dodge the highlights, and let's go here on the face as well. And notice how I continuously change the size of the brush depending on the areas that I want to brush. And you'll see how the body of the man will change after using these tools. You'll see that in a second. Let's increase the exposure just a bit here on the pants because I need a stronger effect. And don't forget about the shoes here. As you can see, this part of the shoe is a lot brighter, so enhance those highlights. Also the fingers and this part of the hand. And let's go with the hat a bit more. And let's switch to the burn tool. Now the burn tool is a lot more sensitive, so to say. You have to use lower exposure values that with the dodge tool, because I don't know, for some reason this one is more extreme. So when you use the burn tool, use lower exposures. And just burn the shadows. Obviously you don't avoid the areas that you just dodged, otherwise you're just undoing your own work. So that's why you have to adjust your brush to the area that you're burning. So obviously you can enhance the shadows if you burn the ground here, or you can add more highlights. Let me switch to the dodge tool and add some highlights here on the floor. And I want to burn that part of the field there as well. Okay, so that's my dodge and burn. Let's see a before and after. So before and after, let me zoom in a bit so you can see the change before and after. And if you want an even stronger effect, you can just duplicate this dodge and burn layer, and you can see that now the image is really strong. I don't really like that, so I'll reduce the opacity of this layer to about 40%. Even more. about 15%. Well, actually I'll delete it and leave only this one and just dodge and burn a little more. But you can duplicate the layer if you want to, and you'll get the same effect. Once you're done with the dodge and burn, you can create a stamp pressing Shift, Control, Alt, and E. Make sure you select the top layer first. And with this layer created, go to Filter, Other, and Set High Pass. And this is where you create a sort of a HDR look. And I'll use about, let's go with 5 pixels, click OK, and set the blend mode of this to overlay. And it just sharpens the image a bit and it adds more contrast. And with this layer selected, go to Filter, Artistic, and choose Paint Daubs. And make sure you set the brush size to 1, set sharpness to about 3 or 4, and make sure you have the brush type set to simple and click OK. And that will add even more sharpness to the image. So as you can see, it adds a lot more contrast and sharpness to the entire image. Once you're done with that, create another stamp, pressing again Shift, Control, Alt, and E. And this time I will turn this into a smart object, because I will apply I will apply some filters which I want to be able to modify if I want to. And the first filter that I will apply is the lighting effects filter, which I like a lot. So go to Filter, Render, Lighting Effects. Just play with this spotlight here, and I want it a bit bigger. That I want the light to come from here, from the top right, and I'll set the intensity to about 13. Always check and uncheck the preview so you can see what you're doing. Increase the material because I want to have more contrast. I'll decrease the focus and just make it a bit bigger. And I want to have some shadows on this part of the image. So that's why I used a smart object, because when I click OK, if I don't like that, I can come back and tweak the settings here. Let's see what we've done so far. So before and after, you can see that strong shadow there, and this part of the image is brighter. And I kind of like how that looks, but let me change the color of the light just a bit, add more yellow, and click OK, and it makes the image a bit more yellow. And the next filter that I will apply, actually it's an adjustment, is the shadow and highlights. This is an adjustment that I don't really use too often, but I really like how the image looks. If you use Adobe Elements, this adjustment is under the Enhance menu maybe. Anyway, you can find it on the menu there, but it has only about 3 sliders. It's a lot simpler to use than this one. This is a bit more advanced. And what I want to do is, well, leave the shadows how they are, maybe remove some of the shadows. With this slider here, you can make the shadows a bit brighter, and you can play with the tonal width, something like that. Maybe let's see what the radius does. Yeah, I like how that works. Check the contrast here. When I change the radius, it makes the image a lot stronger. It adds almost like an HDR look to it. I won't touch the highlights. I already like how they look. And what I really want to change is the midtone contrast. This is the one thing that I like of this adjustment, the midtone contrast. You can increase the contrast on the midtones, so you can really get a high contrast image, but don't overdo it. So let's see a preview before and after. So we added a bit of light on the shadows, there, and let's click OK. So a before and after. You can see how the image looks now. If you want an even stronger lighting effect, what you can do is create another stamp and go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask, and increase the radius to about, I don't know, 20 pixels. Let me zoom out a bit and set the amount to, let's see, 70%, and use a radius of about 20 pixels. Yeah, that's okay. Now change the blend mode of this to darken, and you can reduce the opacity to about 50%, and now duplicate the layer and change the blend mode to lighten. And you can group this, well actually let's leave the opacity of both of them to 100%, and select both of them, group them, and now we can change the opacity of the whole group to adjust the amount of effect that we want. So this is a before and after. So that's my hard dramatic light effect that I achieved. Remember that we started from here, and well, this is what I got. I hope you liked the tutorial. If you did, make sure you subscribe to my videos. I have a lot of tutorials coming up of manipulations, techniques, and stuff like that. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.